Hey everyone, welcome to the fifth episode of Curious with Harshit. Today we have a very special guest with us, Ameet. Ameet is the founder and CEO of First Principles. He has helped many founders scale their SaaS companies to 10 million plus ARR. He also brings a very unique perspective of both Indian SaaS ecosystem as well as US SaaS ecosystem from his experience. Amit, excited to have you here. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Harshit. Looking forward to adding value.
So Amit, let's start with First Principles. Can you talk us through the work you are doing?
Sure. First Principles, we are a venture holding company. We start, acquire, and advise B2B SaaS companies. So through the start, which is our venture studio, we start anywhere from 2 to 4 companies every year. Acquisitions, very opportunistic around acquisitions. There should be some pretty good opportunities coming our way over the next few years. And we have an advisory business as well, which is both on the product engineering side and the growth advisory side. And that's basically our ops team that we leverage to scale our own businesses. We have made that available to other SaaS companies to be able to leverage as well to help them scale.
Awesome. So actually, let's talk about what's happening currently in the market. Given that you are into scaling companies, acquiring companies, the overall vibe is kind of gloomy right now. Every day you are hearing news of either layoffs happening in startups or VCs revoking their term sheets. And in general, public market, what is happening with it is quite visible. So as a founder who has recently started, say, a SaaS company, what would you like to tell them? They might be having some questions on whether their timing is right or not of starting their company.
Sure. So what I would really say is in every market, there are always great companies that are built. So, and there's always money available for good companies. So I would really say focus on customers and providing value. As long as you're doing that, you will be all right. So the first thing that I would do is, look at your P&L to see if there are some strategic decisions that you need to make. So that would be the first thing I would do. The second thing that I would do is reach out to customers, especially if you have enterprise customers, through your QBRs and MBRs, so monthly business reviews or quarterly business reviews, and ensure that that revenue is going to be there. Third is I would work with the support and success team to do any cross-sells and upsells to the existing customer base, because that's the easiest way for you to be able to increase revenue. And third is go after net new revenue. So that would be the formula that I would sort of apply. And I would definitely start looking at non-equity options as well. There are a lot of options from a debt perspective that have opened up as well. So that's sort of what I would do.
Got it. So going a bit deeper into this, essentially as a founder, if you want to prioritize, like you said, a founder can focus on, say, either upselling and cross-selling some new products or features to existing clients, versus the clients might also have certain sort of asks which they want from a particular company. So in terms of focusing on business areas, how should a founder prioritize?
Sure. This is in relation to the product roadmap. Is that correct?
Yes.
Understood. So typically making feature updates because of one customer or client is a road for long-term disasters. So I would really validate if this is a request that is something that is going to be applied to a large user base, and the use case is actually validated beyond that small little customer that's there. And if that is the case, then I would go into it. If not, then I wouldn't. And typically the customer concentration for most SaaS companies is low enough where you're able to ignore very kind of specific customer requests that are there. Sure, if a customer is representing 20, 30% of your revenue, which is not typical for a SaaS company, sure, then you may want to look at things a second time. But I would really just focus on the product roadmap that's at hand that can be applied to the largest user base.
Got it. And also, given your experience, like what are the kind of things you're hearing? Essentially, say if I'm looking from perspective of a company which is using like services of multiple companies, in such markets, they also start looking at cost cuttings. And then I think the first line which they start thinking about is where the money is going to this multiple third-party services, vendors, companies, products they are using. So how can founders go about defending their existing revenue?
Sure. So I mean, this starts like the type of SaaS product that you've built. So most hopefully you've built a mission critical SaaS product in a sense where if you don't have this product within your company, then that's going to have long-term negative impacts to the business. So because of that, for example, Salesforce is such a great business because it's so heavily integrated into the companies that they work with that it's really hard for people to churn off of that. So I would say, I hope you've built a software that's sort of mission critical, and software and SaaS is supposed to save money and time rather than anything else. So if anything, people should use your product more rather than less because you should save time and money. And if your product is not doing that, I would look hard at the product roadmap to see how you can actually make that happen.
That's a good thing to talk about with a client as well, on how like probably founders can start focusing more on how they can help companies save cost by helping them optimize processes or
Yeah.
the resources they are putting into it. So now like I'm thinking to do for our next section is I have sort of thought from like try to get into a founder's mindset, or probably let's say if I'm starting something for the first year or 2 years, what are the things I would like to know or have answers to from someone who has an experience like you? The first question which came to my mind while I was thinking about this is like getting your first paying customers, first five, first 10 paying customers. How do you think a founder should go about it? Should they uh, try to leverage their network? Should they try to essentially provide the services free initially, their product initially for free, and then try to convert those users to paying customers? What's a good framework to proceed over there?
Sure. I mean, if you're providing things for free, you don't really have a customer. You have a in terms of their beta users and they are looking to test something and providing you feedback, that's a different story. But yeah, I mean, I would. So typically, the best SaaS companies that I've seen are from people that themselves are facing that problem. So, for example, if I am a yeah, so the people that have faced that problem before, and typically they themselves have a few people that know that have that same problem as well. So I'll reach out to those people first, and then secondly, yeah, definitely beta users is one. Second one. Third is just cold outbound email. If you want to sort of be able to scale your SaaS or get your first initial customers, I would use outbound email is or outbound any outbound channel, LinkedIn, Twitter, to get your first customers. So I would sort of do that, a brute force approach. Then I would layer it on with organic channels such as SEO. And then third, once I start hitting a few $100,000, $300,000, $400,000 in ARR, that's when I would start using things such as PPC.
Got it. What are the indicators of getting PMF in a SaaS business?
Sure. So the metric is typically getting to 1 million in ARR. If you are able to get to 1 million in ARR, then I would say you should see if you have product market fit. Less than that, maybe you don't have product market fit. You may have a product that is a good fit, but I don't know if it's product market fit. So I'd say 1 million ARR is probably a good benchmark. Second is velocity, is how fast are you growing in terms of, are you growing faster than you're able to keep up? How hard is it for you to get customers? In companies that we have had a ton of success with versus companies that have just sort of kind of languished on. For the companies that have been successful, we just couldn't service our customers fast enough. So the velocity is very critical. Word of mouth is very critical. And inbound, like how strong is your inbound game? You'll just have people come to you rather than the other way around.
Makes sense. So essentially what you're saying is if I start something till hitting 1 million ARR, I should just focus on getting the right product. Probably once I hit that milestone, I can focus on sort of like this is where it's a good indication, and I can start focusing more on acquiring the next set of clients with much faster velocity till as compared to what I was doing till now. So another question at this point, probably say if a company has hit 1 million in ARR, one question which comes is like, is the company going to be a sales-led company or a product-led company in terms of getting the next set of users and scaling from there on? This is such a critical decision for a company because it is going to impact probably every department of the business of the company. So as a founder, is it not clear from very early on what kind of growth you will be focusing on, or it actually depends on after you attend certain ARR that you can take this call in a actually more sort of nuanced and correctly understanding the market and then taking this call?
Sure. So typically up till, again, as I said, the 1 million ARR mark, you are figuring things out. You're figuring out who you're actually servicing. And there's three different markets, right? SMB, mid-market, and enterprise. Enterprise, the likelihood of you using product-led growth is pretty low. So you probably need to have sales-led growth. So I would want to say, and you can definitely use multiple sort of channels. Lucidchart is a really great example of that. It is a SaaS company which has a strong enterprise sales team. And at that same time, you're able to go sign up for that product for free, test it out, and do everything. And while there's so much excitement about product-led growth, and that totally makes sense, I would also want to kind of say that companies like even like Asana, 40% of their current spend is on their sales team. So over time, as you scale, when you're getting to a certain revenue range, you will have to go to enterprise to be able to scale your business. So at some point, you will have to do sales. There are only a few companies such as Atlassian that has been able to succeed without building a sales team. However, those are rare cases rather than kind of the rule.
So this also brings me to next question: is what essentially is happening is as the company grows and you scale it, at some point of time you also change the user persona you are trying. Probably when you started, it might be small, medium businesses or enterprises you might be targeting with your product, but at some point of time you want to get those larger accounts. So when you are thinking of scaling business to next level, do enterprise clients always make sense, or do you think there are sort of examples where that's not true?
Yeah, I mean, depending on, and also what I'd want to say is depending on what you see success. So a person may see $1 million success, a person may see $10 million success, and a person may see $100 million success, and some people may only see $1 billion of success. So let's talk about companies that can get to 100 million in ARR. For you to get to 100 million in ARR, the chances of you meeting enterprise customers is pretty high. When it comes to even 10 million in ARR, if you're mainly focused on mid-market, that could probably work. And of course, if you're less than that, sure, you can kind of play in the SMB space. So there are, again, companies such as Canva, which probably has a really large user base within the SMB space. Asana as well probably has a really large user base in the SMB space. However, those companies are funded with billions of dollars to kind of be able to invest early on to basically be able to get that return on their investment in the long term. So yeah, in terms of to answer your question specifically, enterprise is where the money is at, and even mid-market, and I would definitely look at those markets for sure.
Coming to sort of an extension to this question, like we hear continuously building in India for the world. Now, as a SaaS founder, someone who is based in India, if they want to approach their first few customers outside India, what would you suggest them? What can be their GTM strategy for markets outside India?
Outbound email. So if you want to reach out to people, outbound email, LinkedIn doesn't work that well, but yeah, email people and thousands of them. So to convert customers, get meetings, and do what you need to there. You just need to be an entrepreneur at that point, which is there is no strategy, there's only brute force. And whatever channel is going to get you to customers, you need to leverage that to get to customers.
Even if you are say a sales led you have sales led growth strategy, even in that case, probably you should first get few clients and then only sort of go out and get a salesperson in that region or in that country, right?
Yeah, typically when it comes to companies, again, up till $1 million in ARR, it's typically the founder that's doing the sale. And even if a company raises an investment round, the founder is typically involved in the same sales process for sure. And when it comes to hiring like a salesperson in one area, it typically is not an individual, it's typically a team. When it comes to building, typically account executives are supported heavily with SDRs. They need systems in place and things like that to be able to really succeed. Sure, they can definitely start with a Google Sheet as their CRM and just doing sort of outreach and things like that. Sure. However, if you're going for like a true experienced AE that comes from a larger company, they're going to be expecting these systems. So that's another thing I would caution when people are looking to build salespeople. Hey, I'll hire one salesperson. Unless and until you're hiring them where you're giving them a ton of equity or some sort of carrot where they're like, yeah, I'm going to go out of my way to make sales here. It's unlikely that one salesperson is going to cut it out for you. You need a sales team, and that's what you need to build out.
Got it. Now, like we essentially talked about like getting first few use as in first few million in ARR. At what point should a founder be worried about churned users? So essentially, initially, since they are very closely involved in the sales process, they are quite aware of the products which the users want to use, and essentially they can influence product roadmap equally. But once sales team comes into picture, there are like a lot of things happening, a lot of request coming in from the customer. So two things here. One, like how can a founder ensure that they are understanding the requirements of the market correctly? And probably you can answer this question first.
Sure. So I would assume that the founder is probably primarily involved in the product roadmap. So if there's a founding team of two or three, typically one founder is focused on product and one founder is focused on growth. So if a founder is too far away from customers, uh, I don't think that's a recipe for success. So I've never been in a company, or I don't know founders that aren't talking to customers, don't know what's happening with support and success. So if you have a founding team of two or three, one should be focused primarily on product, the other one should be focused on growth. They should be talking to each other to understand what features are coming from the sales team to the product team, and then you prioritize them. So basically what happens is, one question that I see on Twitter often is that, oh, hey, we're getting all these customer requests. How do we actually organize and all of that? So it's not insanely difficult. There's a Jira board. Go ahead and put it onto the backlog. So even if it comes from the support side, even comes from emails and things like that, take that and go ahead and put it in a Jira board in the backlog. And then on a monthly basis, you can go ahead and you can do backlog grooming to see which tickets you want to kind of pick up and put to the top. So that's sort of what I would do.
Got it. And does it make sense to like say once you start scaling probably 10 million plus, you are going to have churned users who are say either there's competition upcoming, they aren't happy with your product or things like that. So
Yeah.
how do you sort of focus on getting new users versus uh, addressing the churned users, and how do you should you maintain any sort of relationship with the users who have churned or the clients who have churned, and how can you go about that?
Yeah, of course. For me, the churn users are more important than new users because they tell you the story of what's going to happen with future users. So absolutely, we should definitely have a strong control on churn, and there should be a good success team in place that is mitigating churn. A ton of times, a lot SaaS customers churn, especially the mid-market and enterprise, is because they just haven't used the product. If you're not using the product, you're not going to pay for it. So that is actually the critical piece here, is to make
Mhm.
sure that people are using the product and you're enabling them to use it. So yeah, in terms of being in touch with churn users, why they've churned is typically extremely critical. And mitigating churn by enablement, by understanding what features they need is also very critical.
Got it. Let's talk about getting clients in India versus getting clients in US, or getting essentially your users. Do you think in India the sales cycle tends to get longer, or is that the case in US as well?
Understood. So you're saying customers building, SaaS companies building for India versus
Yes.
SaaS companies building for. So yeah, I mean, I personally don't have experience building for customers in India. However, the typical narrative is that building for India and selling to Indian customers is a harder sort of sales cycle, and typically they want everything in one solution. So the way that someone explained it to me is Indian B2B customers are looking for like a thali, which has everything in it, whereas Americans are looking just for, let's say, one thing and they're happy with it, versus here they're looking for kind of everything. So if it's, let's say, HR software, they're looking for everything in that HR software. In the US, if like one software that does like, let's say, OKR mapping really well, they're more than happy with it. If they're doing, let's say, leave management really well with it, they may be happy with it. So that's kind of the key difference from what we've seen. Obviously, sensitivity to price is another thing as well. So those are a couple of things that I would be looking out for. So yeah, I mean, if you have the opportunity to build for the world, I think that would probably be a good idea.
That's a very interesting analogy. Indians are in general looking for a lot of varieties for the products they are taking. Makes sense. So leaving into the next segment from here, essentially talking about pricing, there is like so much content out there about SaaS companies on how to go about their pricing, pros, cons. How do you see the pricing strategy evolve, like till you hit 1 million and then after that?
Sure. So, I mean, the best way to do pricing is to optimize for your conversion rate. So if your conversion rate is above 30%, that means that you're probably pricing your products too low. If your pricing starts dipping, or if your conversion rate starts dipping from 30% to less than that, this is for sales, kind of for a sales-led product, then it is time to maybe reduce your price. So I'd use that 30% price point as the lever. If it's more, increase your prices. If it's less, then lower your prices.
A lot of companies often struggle with like or spend a lot of time essentially in trying to get the pricing right and like experimenting with multiple models. That's a good way to sort of just judge themselves on how they are doing or going about it.
Yeah, and also I want to say, like, in terms of like optimizing for price and things like that, aren't like key priorities for a SaaS company that's like in hyperscale mode, because your goal is to just go as fast as possible. You're trying to increase revenue by 10 or 15%. I would assume pricing is not going to suddenly increase by 50%. You may want to focus more on, you may want to spend your mental energy more in providing value to customers rather than anything else. And once you have a larger organization, at that point, you can kind of worry about pricing and things like that. Initially, there should only be one goal, which is to service the customer in the best way possible. And all these things, such as pricing and things like that, is something you want to look at when you're larger. And right now, I mean, it's very rare that you're going to build a unique SaaS product where nothing of that sort has been built before. So there's so many comparables that are out there. Use one, see what the features are, go up and down. I would not overthink it.
Yep. Essentially focusing on providing the right value to the users instead of trying to just play around with this and trying to increase the revenue. Currently, like as you said, like there are so many SaaS companies coming up, and I believe there is a lot of focus on like specific, as in you can pick a very small problem which a certain number of users are facing and build a product out of it. Now, say probably like there are many verticals, and so which verticals are you most excited about?
Sure. So I think the MarTech space is, or before we talk about MarTech, if I talk about the HR space, uh, in terms of the way that we work has essentially just changed over the last 2 years. There are a lot of companies that are coming out. So I would want to say the HR space, the modern HR tools is one space that is very interesting. Two is we are marketers ourselves, and marketing continues to change every 2 to 3 years. So I love kind of looking at products in that space, just because there's so many things that are happening there. That's two. Third is definitely fintech, not fintech when it comes to B2C, but specifically when it comes to more B2B. So I would say those are the three kind of spaces that I am really interested in.
Got it. Probably as a founding team, co-founder can be focused on product and tech. Another co-founder can be focused on growth and marketing. Uh, Once you hit, say, a critical mass of revenue, how do you think about scaling the team?
Sure. And this question also depends on if you are more of a product slash engineering kind of, it's typically not product, typically like engineering led kind of founding team, or if you're more of a business slash growth led founding team. So regardless of that, my first hire would probably be like a head of people ops, and more specifically a recruiter. So you need a really strong recruiter to be able to join your company. So I would say that's one. Two is I would yeah, I mean, if you are focused on engineering, I would really focus on, or yeah, if you don't have like a strong engineering background in your engineering team, I'd look for a really strong principal architect, because yeah, when you're scaling your product, the way that you may have built the MVP is not going to take you to scale. So there's a lot of like stability and performance issues that a lot of companies that are scaling are facing. So I'm not looking for an engineering manager. I'm not looking for a person that may be working on the code on like features. I'm looking for a person that is going to be an architect and helping identify and manage technical debt. So that's kind of the role that I would look for. And then on the other side, on the sales side, if you are a sales-led product, yeah, I would hire like a really great salesperson and build a team around it. So that's sort of how I would build. First would be a head of people ops. Second, if you do not have a strong engineering background within your team, get a principal architect who can take care of technical debt and stability and scalability challenges. And third is really sort of just investing in like the growth of the product.
Also, since you mentioned that you have a lot of background in marketing and you keep a close eye on how the space is evolving, one question which I am thinking about is that how important it is for a product-led growth. It definitely makes sense to invest heavily in marketing, but for a sales-led growth org, how do you think of marketing and their role in the company?
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, I mean, marketing jobs to generate MQLs, the marketing qualified leads, and you need to pick a channel through which you are able to do that. So when it comes to marketing, a lot of people see that as branding, where you're everywhere, you're here and there, you're on the news, you're at this conference. So maybe that's not as insanely required, as long as you're being able to create some buzz within the niche that you are in. I think that should be more than sufficient. I would deploy all my capital into product and engineering, and then the rest of it building out a sales team and supporting that through outbound email and through SEO. That's sort of how I would grow my SaaS companies.
Understood. That's a good framework. As a founder, what are some 2 or 3 things which aren't really cool, but the founder shouldn't shy away with?
Yeah, and I would say these. I think a founder should be. I mean, just because you scale your company, I think the best founders that I know, they don't change in the way that they work and things like that. I would want to say the biggest thing would be how you work with your own team. So the way that I've learned how to build companies is you take care of your people, people care about the products, and the products take care of their revenue. When the company is just about 10 people, 20 people, 25 people, you typically know everybody within the team, and you may know people's birthdays, you're celebrating all those things. As things scale, those things might change. So still knowing those details about people and actually having human connection with your team is insanely important. So I would want to say that's the most critical piece, man. Everything else, I think, takes care of itself as long as you take care and have a very sort of human-centered approach to building a team.
Overall, the way I'm looking at it is like for all the businesses, whether be SaaS, B2C, focus on the people, the product, and the revenue in that order. So, Amit, there like we talked about a bunch of things, and there are a lot of technical advices which you have given for founders. It's very
Yeah.
actionable in terms of how they can go about thinking when they are thinking to scale the business. Also, would like to do a, you can say, a completely new thing with you. Even I'm trying this for the first time. We'll do a sort of a meme review on SaaS companies, couple of memes. Um,
Yeah.
so some brief context. I also have a meme page where sometimes when I'm bored, I upload memes on Twitter. It is decent following now, not
Yeah.
decent,
Okay.
but yeah, I wasn't.
I
It
love.
has more following than my actual Twitter profile. So
Hey, that's awesome, man. I
yeah.
love. I love that you're into memes. So yeah, let's review your memes, man.
Let's do some meme reviews. The context is I have previously worked in SaaS companies, so some context from there. My wife, she's also a product manager in a SaaS company, and
Okay.
this is like some common themes which I have observed across.
Yeah.
So this is the first one.
Yeah. This is pretty This is pretty funny. Hopefully this doesn't happen. But yeah, this is definitely pretty funny.
Do you think this happens often in companies, and should companies actively avoid this?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, we funnily talk about it, but I would want to say good companies set expectations pretty clearly from day one. I think this happens at larger companies, maybe. However, companies that are smaller in size, I would want to say what they've promised versus what is delivered is pretty on point. When they have said it's going to be delivered, it might be different. We may have promised that it's done in Q1, it might be done in Q3. So, but it gets done. That's at one point though.
Got it. Yeah. I think the timeline point is more accurate actually. You can promise something like it's happening in coming months, but how many months is not clear.
Yeah.
Let's move to the next one. With
Yeah, I mean, honestly, as I said, like I have a pretty clear view on pricing. Is yeah. So yeah.
Yep, I think shouldn't get intimidated or too much confused or spend much time on this. Just go ahead
Yeah,
with
not worth it.
a simple strategy and say focus on the conversion.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is so true. This is so true. This is pretty funny. Yeah, this definitely happens. I think the sales team is very focused on certain features, and I think when you're scaling a product, let's say you have 10 engineers, I want to say three are probably working on actual product related things. Three are probably working on like bugs or a small enhancement, and the remaining three are probably working on stability and enhancement. So what the growth seems to be like, you have 10 engineers, why can't we get this done? However, we're not understanding that, hey, it's not really 10 engineers, it's actually three. And from all those 10 people, 20% of the time is going to do interviews for hiring more engineers. So in terms of from the actual bandwidth perspective, if you actually analyze it, it's actually pretty limited. And that's actually what this, so yeah, this is accurate. You gotta send this to me, man. This is pretty funny. I just took a screenshot of it. I'm gonna post it in our internal channel. It's really funny.
Yep. So this both things what you said are very true. One is like sales team or growth team in general feeling like we hired so many engineers over last 2 quarters and still the features we are bringing are not getting prioritized, and that's where this what we discussed in earlier also, the like if you start sort of focusing on very particular features or things like that, you might lose out on the bigger picture.
Yeah. That's funny. This is pretty. Yeah, backend developers changing. I think it's more the DevOps. It's not even backend developers. It's DevOps, making sure that your platform is fast and whatnot, especially as you're scaling. So yeah, we've had that. So
This
I would want to say, yeah, go ahead.
no, this used to happen with me. Like there are multiple features which you can configure, and like while giving a demo, you don't have any sort of like UI or front end from where you can change. So you like just ping on Slack, like I need to change this, and then continue with the demo.
Oh wow, that's funny. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, man, definitely. Yeah, it's fun, man. Building companies is fun for sure. These are all apt.
Um, this is the last one.
Yeah, I mean, I think now there is a lot of build in public and whatnot. A lot of people are talking about it, so hopefully this is less the case.
Yeah. And I think once you hit 10 million, that is not going to be the case when you are in a party. So
Yeah, right.
yeah.
Hopefully, these are funny, man. I gotta follow your meme page. Thanks for giving me a few laughs.
Yeah, I'll put it somewhere in the video. And yeah, awesome. It was great speaking to you, Amit. This was fun. We talked
Yeah,
about a bunch of things.
yeah,
Hope you had a good time.
yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, let me know how I can add value to you or to your audience. I'm more than happy to help. Thanks for having me on. And yeah, look forward to staying in touch, Harshit.
Awesome. Thank you, Amit.